Every problem of self-control is not a problem of information or discipline or reason, but rather of emotion. Self-control is an emotional problem. Laziness is an emotional problem. Procrastination is an emotional problem. Underachievement is an emotional problem. Impulsiveness is an emotional problem. This sucks because emotional problems are much harder to deal with than logical ones. There are equations to help you calculate the monthly payment on your car loan. There are no equations to help you end a better relationship. And as you have probably figured out by now, intellectually, understanding how to change your behavior doesn't change your behavior. Trust me, I have read like 12 books on nutrition and I am still jumping on a burrito as I write this. We know we should stop smoking cigarettes or stop eating sugar or stop talking shit about our friends behind their back, but we still do. And it's not because don't we don't know better, it's because we don't feel better. Emotional problems are irrational, meaning they cannot be reasoned with, and this brings us to even worse news. Emotional problem can only be emotional solutions. It's all up to the feeling brain. And if you have seen how most people's feeling brains drive, that's pretty scary. Meanwhile, all this is going on, the thinking brain is sitting in the passenger seat, imagining itself to be totally in control of the situation. If the feeling brain is our driver, then the thinking brain is our navigator. It has stacks of maps to reality that it has drawn and accumulated throughout life. It knows how to double back and find alternate routes to the same destination. It knows where the bad turns are and where to find the shortcuts. It correctly sees itself as the intelligent, rational brain, and it believes that this somehow privileges it to be in control of the conscious car. But alas, it doesn't. As Daniel Kahneman once put it, the thinking brain is the supporting character who imagine herself to be the hero. Even if sometimes they cannot stand each other, our two brain need each other. The feeling brain generates the emotion that causes us to move into action, and the thinking brain suggests where to direct the action. The keyword here is suggest. While the thinking brain is not able to control the feeling brain, it is able to influence it, sometimes to a great degree. The thinking brain can convince the feeling brain to pursue a new road, to be better future, to pull a U-turn when it has made a mistake, or to consider new route or territories once ignored. But the feeling brain is stubborn, and if it wants to go in one direction, it will drive that way, no matter how many facts or data the thinking brain provides. Moral psychology Jonathan Haidt compares the two brains to an elephant and its rider. The rider cannot gently steer and pull the elephant in a particular direction, but ultimately the elephant is going to go where it wants to go. Feeling brain, as great as it is, has its dark side. In the conscious car, your feeling brain is like a verbally abusive boyfriend who refuses to pull over and ask for direction. He hates being told where to go, and he'll absolutely make you miserable if you question his driving. In order to avoid this psychological care- carefulness and to maintain a sense of hope, the thinking brain develops a tendency to draw. In order to avoid the psychological kerfuffles and to maintain a sense of hope, the thinking brain develops a tendency to draw map, explaining or justifying where the feeling brain has already decided it wants to go. If the feeling brain wants ice cream, instead of contracting it with facts about processed sugar and excess calories, your thinking brain decides, you know what, I have worked hard today, I deserve some ice cream, and your feeling brain responds with a sense of ease and satisfaction. If your feeling brain decides that your partner is an and you have done nothing wrong, your thinking brain's immediately reaction will be to recoil instances when you, in fact, were a beacon of patience and humility, while your partner was secretly conspiring to ruin your life. In this way, the two brain develop a really unhealthy relationship that might resemble your mom and dad on road trips. When you were a kid, the thinking brain makes shit up that the feeling brain wants to hear, and in return, the feeling brain promises not to careen off the side of the road, killing everyone. It's incredibly easy to let your thinking brain fall into the trap of merely drawing the maps the feeling brain wants to follow. This is called the self-serving bias, and it's the basis for pretty much everything awful about humanity. Usually, the self-serving bias simply makes you prejudiced and a little bit self-centered. You assume that what feels right is right, and you make snap judgments about people, places, groups, and ideas, many of which are unfair or even a little bit bigoted. But in its extreme form, the self-serving bias can become outright delusion, causing you to believe in a reality that is not there, smudging memories and exaggerating facts, all in the service of the feeling brain's never-ending cravings. Thinking brain if the thinking brain is weak and or uneducated, or if the feeling brain is riled up, the thinking brain will succumb to the feeling brain's fiery whims and dangerous driving. It will lose the ability to think for itself or to contradict the feeling brain's conclusion. This effectively turns your consciousness car into a clown car with big springy red wheels and circus music playing over and loud speaker wherever you go. Your consciousness car becomes a clown car when your thinking brain has completely capitulated to your feeling brain. When your life's pursuits are determined purely by self gratification, what truth warms into a cartoon of self serving assumption. When all beliefs and principles are lost in a sea of nihilism, the clown car invariably drives towards addiction, narcissism, and com- compulsion. People whose minds are clown cars are easily manipulated by whatever person or group makes them feel good consistently. Whether it is a religious leader, politician, self-help guru, or sinister internet forum, a clown car will gladly steamroll other consciousness car, that is other people, with its big red rubbery tires because its thinking brain will justify this by saying they deserve it. They were evil, inferior, or part of some made up problem. Some clown cars merely drive toward fun. They are all about drinking and partying. Others drive toward power. These are the most dangerous clown cars, as their thinking brain sets toward justifying their abuse and subjugation of others through intellectual sounding theories about economics, politics, race, genetics, gender, biology, history, and so on. A clown car will sometimes pursue hate too, because hate brings its odd satisfaction and self-assurance. Such a mind is prone to self-righteous anger, as having an external target reassures it of its own moral superiority. Inevitably, it drives towards the destruction of others, because it is only through destruction and subjugation of the outer world that its endless inner impulses can be satisfied. It's hard to pull someone out of the clown car once they are in. In the clown car, the thinking brain has been bullied and abused by the feeling brain for so long that it develops a sort of Stockholm syndrome. It can't imagine a life beyond pleasing and justifying the feeling brain. It can fathom contradicting the feeling brain or challenging it on where it's going, and it resents you for suggesting that it should. With the clown car, there is no independent thought and no ability to measure contradiction or switch beliefs or opinions. In a sense, the person with a clown car mind ceases to have an individual identity at all. This is why cultist leaders always start by encouraging people to shut off their thinking brain as much as possible. Initially, this feels profound to people because the thinking brain is often correcting the feeling brain, showing it where it took a wrong turn. So silencing the thinking brain will feel extremely good for a short period, and people are always mistaking what feels good for what is good. The metaphorical clown car is what inspired ancient philosophers to warn against the overindulgence and worship of feelings. It was the fear of the clown car that inspired the Greeks and Romans to teach of the virtues, and later the Christian church to push a message abstinence and self-denial. Both classical philosophers and the church had seen the destruction brought by narcissistic and megalomaniacal men in power, and they all believed that the only way to manage the feeling brain was to deprive it, to give it a little oxygen as possible, thus preventing it from exploding and destroying the world around it. This thinking gave birth to the classic assumption that the only way to be a good person is through dominance of the thinking brain over the feeling brain, the championing of reason over emotion, duty over desire. For most of human history, people have been brutal, superstitious, and uneducated. People in the Middle Ages used to torture cats for sport and take their kids to watch the local burglar get his. People were sadistic, impulsive. For most of history, the world has not been a pleasant place to live, and that was largely because everyone's feeling brain was running amok. The classic assumptions was often the only thing that stood between civilization and total anarchy. Then something happened in the last couple of hundred years. People built trains and cars and invented central heating and stuff. Economic prosperity outran human impulses. People were no longer worried about not being able to eat or about being killed for insulting the king. Life was more comfortable and easier. People now had a ton of free time to sit and think and worry about all sort of existential shit that they had never considered before. As a result, several movements arose in the late 20th century, champ- championing the feeling brain and indeed liberating the feeling brain from the thinking brain. Superior suppression was incredibly therapeutic for millions of people and continues to be so today. The problem was that people began to go too far the other way. They went from recognizing and honoring their feeling to the other extreme of believing that their feelings were the only thing that mattered. This has been particularly true for white middle class yuppies who were raised under the classic assumption, grew up miserable, and then got in touch with their feeling brain at much later because the people never had any real problems in their lives other than feeling bad. They erroneously erroneously came to believe the feelings were all that mattered and that the thinking brain maps were merely inconvenient distractions from those feelings. Many of these people called this shutting off of their thinking brain in favor of their feeling brain, spiritual growth, and convince themselves that being self absorbed facts brought them closer to enlightenment. When what really they were indulging the old feeling brain, it was the same old clone car with a new spiritual looking paint job. The overindulgence of emotion led to a crisis of hope, but so does the repression of emotion. The person who denies his feeling brain numbs himself to the world around him. By rejecting his emotion, he rejects making value judgment that is deciding that one thing is better than the other. As a result, he becomes indifferent to life and the result of his decision. He struggles to engage with others, his relationships suffer, and eventually his chronic indifference leads him to an unpleasant visit with the uncomfortable truth. After all, if nothing is more or less important, then there is no reason to do anything. And if there is no reason to do anything, then why live at all? Meanwhile, the person who denies his thinking brain becomes impulsive and selfish, wrapping reality to conform to his whims and fancies, which are the never satisfied. His crisis of hope is that no matter how much he eats, drinks, dominates, or it will never be enough. It will never matter enough. It will never feel insignificant enough. He will be on virtual treadmill of desperation, always running through, never moving. And if at any point he stops, the uncomfortable truth immediately catches up to him. I know I am being dramatic again, but I have to be thinking brain. Otherwise, the feeling brain will get bored and close this book. Ever wonder why a page turner is a page turner? It's not you turning those pages, idiots. It's your feeling brain. It's the anticipation and suspense, the joy of discovering, and the satisfaction of resolution. Good writing is writing that is able to speak to and stimulate both brains at the same time, and this is the whole problem. Speaking to both brains, integrating our brains into a cooperative, coordinated, unified whole, because its self-control is an illusion of the thinking brain's overblown self-regard. Then it's self-acceptance. Then that will give us accepting our emotions and working with them rather than against them. But to develop the self acceptance, we have to do some work. Thinking brain, let's talk. Meet me in the next section. An open letter to your thinking brain. Hey, thinking brain, how are things? How is the family? How did the tech situation work out? Oh, wait, never mind, I forgot. I don't care. Look, I know there is something the feeling brain is screwing up for you. Maybe it's an unimportant relationship. Maybe it's causing you to make embarrassing phone call at 3 a.m. Maybe it's constantly medicating itself with substances it's probably shouldn't be using. I know there is something you wish you could control about yourself but can't. And I imagine at times this problem causes you to lose hope. But listen, thinking brain, those things you hate so much about your feeling brain, the cravings, the impulses, the horrible decision making, you need to find a way to emphasize with them, because that's the only language the feeling brain really understand. Empathy. The feeling brain is a sensitive creature. It made out of your damn feelings. After all, I wish it weren't true. I wish you could show it spreadsheet to make it understand. Like we understand, but you can. Instead of bombarding the feeling brain with facts and reasons, start by asking, how is it feeling? Say something like, hey feeling brain, how do you feel about going to the gym today? And how do you feel about changing careers? Or how do you feel about selling everything and moving to Tahati? The feeling brain won't respond with words. No, the feeling brain is too quick for words. Instead, it will respond with feelings. Yeah, I know that's obvious, but sometimes you are kind of dumbass. Thinking brain. The feeling brain might respond with a feeling of laziness or feeling of anxiety. There might even be multiple emotions, a little bit of excitement with a pinch of anger thrown into the mix, whatever it is. You, as the thinking brain, aka the responsible one in this cranium, need to remain non-judgmental in the face of whatever feeling arises. Feeling lazy, that's okay. We all feel lazy sometimes. Feeling loathing, perhaps that's an invitation to take the conversation further. The gym can wait. It's important to let the feeling brain air out of all its icky, twisted feelings. Just get them out into the open where they can breathe, because the more they breathe, the weaker their grip is on the steering wheel of your consciousness car. Then, once you feel you have reached a point of understanding with your feeling brain, it's time to appeal it in a way it understands through feelings. Maybe think about all the benefits of some desired new behavior. Basically, you need to bargain with your feeling brain the way you bargain with a Moroccan drug seller. It needs to believe it's getting a good deal, or else there'll just be a lot of hand waving and shouting with no result. Maybe you agree to do something the feeling brain likes, as long as it does something it doesn't like. Watch your favorite TV show, but only at the gym while you are on treadmill. Go out with friends, but only if you have paid for your bills for months. Start easy. Remember, the feeling brain is highly sensitive and completely unreasonable. When you offer something easy with an emotional benefit, example, feeling good after a workout, pursuing a career that feels significant, being admired and respected by your kids, the feeling brain will respond with another emotion, either positive or negative. If the emotion is positive, the feeling brain will be willing to do drive a little bit in that direction, but only a little bit. Remember, feelings never last. That's why you start small. Just put on your gym shoes today. Feeling brain. That's all. Let's just see what happens. If the feeling brain's responsive is negative, you simply acknowledge that negative emotion and offer another compromise. See how the feeling brain responds. Then rinse and repeat. But whatever you do, do not fight the feeling brain. that just makes things worse. For one, you won't even win ever. The feeling brain is always driving. Second, fighting with the feeling brain about feeling bad will only cause the feeling brain to fill up even worse. So why would you do that? You were supposed to be the smart one, thinking brain. This dialogue with your feeling brain will continue back and forth like this. On and off for days, weeks, or maybe even months. Hell yes. This dialogue between the brain takes practice for some. The practice will be recognizing with emotion the feeling brain is putting out there. Some people's thinking brains have ignored their feelings brain for so long that it takes them a while to learn how to listen again. Others will have the opposite problem. They will have to train their thinking brain to speak up, force it to propose an independent thought, a new direction that's separate from the brain feelings. They will have to ask themselves why, what is my feeling brain is wrong to feel this way, and then consider the alternatives. This will be difficult for them at first, but the more this dialogue occurs, the more the two brains will begin to listen to each other. The feeling brain will start giving off different emotion, and thinking brain will have a better understanding of how to help the feeling brain navigate the road of life. This is what's referred to in psychology as emotional regulations, and it's basically learning how to put a bunch of guardrails on way one way signs along your road of life to keep your feeling brain from careening off cliff. It's hard work, but it's arguably the only one because you don't get to control your feeling. Thinking brain self control is an illusion. It's an illusion that occurs when both brains are aligned and pursuing the same course of action. It's an illusion designed to give other people hope. And when the thinking brain isn't aligned with the feeling brain, people feel powerless and the world around them begins to feel hopeless. The only way you constantly nail that illusion is by constantly communicating and aligning the brain around the same values. It's a skill much the same as playing water polo or juggling knives in a skill. It takes work and there will be failures along the way. You might slice your arm open and bleed everywhere, but that's just the cost of admission. But here is what you have to do. Thinking brain, you may not have self control, but you do have meaning control. This is your superpower. This is your gift. You get the control, the meaning of your impulses and feelings. You get the decipher them. You get to decipher them however you see fit. You get to draw the map, and this is incredibly powerful because it's the meaning that we ascribe to our feelings that can offer alter how the feeling brain reacts to them. And this is how you produce hope. This is how you produce a sense that future can be fruitful and pleasant by interpreting the shit the feeling brain slings at you in a profound and useful way instead of justifying and enslaving yourself to the impulses, challenge them and analyze them, change their character and their shape. This is basically what good therapy is. Of course, self acceptance and emotional intelligence and all that. Actually, this whole teach your thinking brain to decipher and cooperate with your feeling brain instead of judging him and thinking he is an evil piece of shit is the basis of CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, and ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and a lot of other fun acronyms that clinical psychologists invented to make our lives better. Our crisis of hope often start with a basic sense that we do not have control over ourselves on our destiny. We feel victims to the world around us, or worse, to our own minds. We feel our feeling brain trying to beat into submission, or we do the opposite and follow it mindlessly. We ridicule ourselves and hide from the world because of the classic assumption, and in many ways, the affluence and connectivity of the modern world only make the pain of the illusion of self-control that much worse. But this is your mission, thinking brain. Should you choose to accept is engage the feeling brain on its own terms, create an environment that can bring about the feeling brain's best impulses and intuition rather than its worst. Accept and work with rather than against whatever the feeling brain spews at you. Everything else, all the judgments and assumptions and self aggrandizement is an illusion. It is always an illusion. You don't have control. Thinking when you never did and you never will. Yet you needed lose hope. Needn't lose hope. Antonio Damasio ended up writing a celebrated book called Descartes' Error about his experience with Eliot and much of his other research in it. He argues that the same way the thinking brain produces a logical, factual form of knowledge, the feeling brain develops its own type of value laden knowledge. The thinking brain makes associations among facts, data, and observations. Similarly, the feeling brain makes value judgments based on the some facts, data, and observation. The feeling brain decides what is good and what is bad, what is desirable and what is undesirable, and most important, what we deserve and what we don't deserve. The thinking brain is objective and factual. The feeling brain is subjective and relative, and no matter what we do, we can never translate one form of knowledge into another. This is the real problem of hope. It's rare that we don't understand intellectually how to cut back on carbs or wake up early or stop smoking. It's that somewhere inside of our feeling brain, we have decided that we don't deserve to do these things, that we are unworthy of doing them, and that's why we feel so bad about them. The feeling of unworthiness is usually the result of some bad shit happening to us at some point. We suffer through some terrible stuff, and our feeling brain decides that we deserve those bad experiences. Therefore, it sets up, despite the thinking brain's better knowledge, to repeat and re-experience that suffering. This is the fundamental problem of self-control. This is the fundamental problem of hope, not an uneducated thinking brain, but an unexpected feeling brain. A feeling brain that has adopted and accepted poor value judgments about itself and the world. And this is the real work of anything that even resemble psychological healing, getting our value straight with ourselves so that we can get our value straight with the world. Put another way, the problem isn't that don't know how not to get punched in the face. Problem is that at some point, likely a long time ago, we got punched in face. Instead of punching back, we decided we deserved it. Newton's law of motion. The first time Isaac Newton got hit in the face, he was standing in a field. His uncle had been explaining to him why wheat should be planted in diagonal row, but Isaac wasn't listening. He was gazing into the sun, wondering what light was made of. He was 7 years old. His uncle backhanded him so hard across his left cheek that Isaac's sense of self temporarily broken up to the ground on which his body fell. He lost any feeling of personal cohesion, and as the part of his psyche put themselves back together, some secret piece of himself remained in the dirt, left behind in a place from which it would never be recovered. Isaac's father had died before he was born, and his mother soon abandoned her son to marry some old rich guy the next village over. As a result, Isaac spent his formative years being shuffled among uncles, cousins, and grandparents. No one particularly wanted him. Few knew what to do with him. He was burdened. Love came difficulty. and usually not at all. Isaac's uncle was an uneducated drunk, but he did know how to count hedges and rows in field. It was his one intellectual skill, and because of this, he did probably more often than he needed to. Isaac often tagged along to these row counting sessions because it was the only time his uncle ever paid attention to him. And like water in a desert, any attention the boy he got desperately soaked in. As it turned out, the boy was kind of prodigy. By age 8, he could project the amount of feed required to sustain the sheep and pigs for the following season. By 9, he could rattle off the top of his head calculation for hectares of wheat, barley, and potatoes. By age 10, Isaac had decided that farming was stupid and instead turned his attention to calculating the exact trajectory of the sun throughout the seasons. His uncle didn't care about the exact trajectory of the sun because it wouldn't put food on the table, and Liz not directly. So again, he hit Isaac. School didn't make things any better. Isaac was a pale and scrawny and absent-minded. He lacked social skill. He was into nerdy shit like Sundale's Cartesian planes and determining whether the moon was actually a sphere. While the other kids played cricket or chased one another through the woods, Isaac stood staring for hours into local streams, wondering how the eyeball was capable of seeing light. Isaac Newton's early life was one hit after another, and with each blow, with each blow, his feeling brain learned to feel an immutable truth that there must be something inherently wrong with him. Why else would his parents have abandoned him? Why else would his peers ridicule him? What other explanation for his near constant solitude? While his thinking brain occupied itself drawing and sea fuel graphs and charting the lunar eclipses, his feeling brain silently internalized the knowledge that there was something fundamentally broken about this small English boy from Lancashire. One day he wrote in his school notebook, I am little fellow, pale and weak. There is no room for me, not in the house or in the bottom of the hell. What can I do? What am I good for? I cannot but weep. Up until this point, everything you have read about Newton is true, or at least highly plausible. But let's pretend for a moment that there is a parallel universe, and let's say that in this parallel universe there is another Isaac Newton, much like our own. He still comes from a broken and abusive family. He still lives a life of angry isolation. He still prodigiously measures and calculates everything he encounters. But let's say that instead of obsessively measuring and calculating the external natural world, the parallel universe, Newton decided to obsessively measure and calculate the internal psychological world, the world of the human mind and heart. This isn't a huge leap of the imagination, as the victims of abuse are often the least observers of human nature. For you and me, people watching may be something fun to do or random Sunday in the park, but for abuse, it's a survival skill. For them, violence might erupt at any moment. Therefore, they develop a nice spidey sense to protect themselves. A lilt in someone's voice, the rise of an eyebrow, the depth of a sigh, anything can set off their internal alarm. So let's imagine this parallel universe. This Emo Newton turned his obsession towards the people around him. He kept notebooks cataloging all over the observable behaviors of his peers and family. He scribed relentlessly, documenting every action, every word. He filed hundreds of pages with inane observations of the kind of Newton natural world, the shapes and configurations of the sun and moon and stars, then it should also be able to predict and control internal emotional world. And through his observations, Emo Duty realized something painful that we all knew, but that few of us ever wanted to admit, that people are liars. All of us, we lie constantly and habitually. We lie about important things and trifling things, and we usually don't lie out of malice. Rather, we lie to others because we are in such a habit of lying to ourselves. Isaac noted that the light refracted through people's heart in a way that they themselves do not seem to see. The people said they love those whom they appeared to hate, professed to believe one thing while doing another, imagined themselves righteous while committing acts of the grandest dishonesty and cruelty. Yet, in their own minds, they somehow believed their action to be constant and true, consistent and true. As he decided that no one could be trusted ever, he concluded that his pain was inversely proportional to the distance squared he put between himself and the world. Therefore, he kept to himself, staying in no one's orbit, spinning out and away from the gravitational tug of any other human heart. He had no friends, nor he decided did he want any. He concluded that the world was a bleak place, and that the only value to his pathetic life was his ability to document and calculate that wretchedness. wretchedness. For all his surliness, Isaac certainly didn't lack ambition. He wanted to know the trajectory of man's heart, the velocity of their pain. He wished to know the force of their values and the mass of their hopes. And most important, he wanted to understand the relationship among all these elements. He decided to write Newton's three laws of emotions. Newton's first law of emotion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite emotional reaction. Imagine that I punch you in the face. No reason, no justification, just pure violence. Your instinctual reaction might be to retaliate in some way. Maybe it be a physical, you'd punch me back. Maybe it be verbal, you'd call me a bunch of four-letter words. Or maybe your retaliation would be social. You call the police or some other authority. You have me punished for assaulting you, regardless of your response. You would feel a rush of negative emotion.